Treasurer's report. So as of yesterday, our TRA account has $6,047.11. And we had one expenditure last month of $96.55 for FedEx and office. So our first guest today is going to talk about curriculum in the entire state. Dr. Myers comes to us from Louisiana. It's their loss and our circuit gain. Dr. Myers has been everything from a classroom teacher, a superintendent. She's written curriculum, and she's a roller queen, skater, phenomenal skater, roller skates. She probably didn't want me to tell that, but she's phenomenal. So she's very, very talented. She's going to talk today about our curriculum, wit and wisdom, open up resources, basically everything that's across the state, because just because your district doesn't have wit and wisdom doesn't mean that you've escaped the wrath of the CRT or the bad curriculum. So Dr. Myers, we'd like you to come up. You can use this microphone however you like. We'll give you about 15 minutes. And then we're going to have some time afterwards for some Q&A. Thank you.
I wasn't sure exactly what my role was going to be today, but I appreciate any opportunity to share with parents and citizens about what's going on in education. As far as the roller skating, she's talking about, I competitively figure skate on roller skates. When people find out about that, they're just kind of what? In fact, I just came back from nationals, got my very first national medal.
Wow!
So I'm very, very excited about that. And so anyway, I've been in education a long, long time. There's a couple of things beyond the curriculum that I'm very concerned. I want to kind of touch on that first. I will be speaking today at the event in Hendersonville with the other speakers today. I'll be going into more detail, and I have a PowerPoint that will show you some things. But Louisiana has been in this a long time, and I know that y'all think Louisiana is a red state, but and it might vote red, but if you dig down deep enough, it's not as red as you think it is. One of the concerns I had was in 2011, whenever I ran for the State Board of Education, because in our state that is an elected position, it is not appointed by the governor. The State Board of Education has 11 seats, 8 of them the citizens get to vote on. Major foundations pouring money into our state back in 2011 because our governor, Bobby Jindal, who was supposed to be a conservative governor, do you see the deja vu I had when I moved here? He brought John White from New York City, who was a Mayor Michael Bloomberg appointee, to run our education system. Y'all see the deja vu? When I moved here, you're going to hear that a lot today because I'm going to be showing what those policies and procedures have done to the student achievement in Louisiana today during that event when I speak. But essentially, what you're seeing today is simply the fruition of a lot of ideology that came into our country in the early 1900s. From the German school, the Frankfurt, what they call the Frankfurt School. And the Frankfurt School, basically it's Marxism. It's just, what you're seeing is just iterations of Marxism. It's critical theories, and then it comes into critical legal studies, and then critical race theory, critical queer theory, critical fat studies, it's critical everything. And I'm serious. You can read an actual study about a woman who wrote about glaciation in geology and how it relates to feminism. Look, I wish I could say I was joking, but I'm not. You can actually read it if it won't hurt your head to read. But ultimately, what you're seeing in this state is a lot of policies that were similar in Louisiana. One of them is the development under John White of teacher leaders. Teacher leaders are these leaders that are going to go in and teach the teachers how to unpack the standards and how to be better able to teach their content. Now, the concern that I have about both of those is, number one, did they not go to college? If you go to college and you get a degree in mathematics education, my assumption when I hire you is, or if my school were to hire you, is that you have content expertise in mathematics. And what I'm hearing over and over and over again, both in Louisiana and in Tennessee, is we've got to help our teachers be better at teaching their content. And it just, either you don't trust your teachers or your education, your college of education programs really stink if your teachers are that unable to walk into a classroom and teach their content. That's right. That's the first thing that's really concerning. Either you don't trust your teachers and they have the skills and you're not letting them do it, or they really don't have the skills, and you need to find out which one of those. And I talked to a legislator recently, and I said, if it's that bad, redo your teacher licensure program.
Right.
Change how the test is. Change the test to something like the classical learning test, and you're going to weed out the people that don't have content knowledge. I don't see that happening because I think your teacher unions would be fired up and fight against something like that, but I, as an educator, have no problem with that. I went through the National Teachers Exam, which was, in my opinion, much more difficult than what you have today. I went through National Board Certification, which I thought was actually a joke. It was a lot of hoop jumping. I don't see how I came out the other side of that knowing more, really. Other than knowing my students better, I guess that would be the better thing. And then, I went through my doctorate programs and had to take tests there. And so when I come out the other side, it really should be, I'm smart enough to do my job. Really, you need to think about that. Do teachers need continuous learning? I think so, because there's new stuff that comes out, especially your biology teachers and things like that, as things begin to change. But your literature teachers, which is where a lot of this stuff is finding itself, and your ELA teachers, why aren't we teaching grammar? Why do we have problems with student writing? In fact, I just got a little note from a student, and I'm sharing with you, and I hope that he doesn't get upset if he finds out about it, but he's an honor student. He graduated with the highest honors in his class, and the writing, when I saw the writing, I was just like, oh my gosh, you should be writing better than this if you are considered an honors student. And so the teacher leader program is an issue, because how do you funnel things into teachers? You funnel them in through professional development. A great deal of this is funneled in through professional development and scripted curriculum. Now, when I taught the 20 years that I was in the classroom, and one of the reasons I didn't become an administrator until much later in my career is because I loved my classroom. I just didn't want to be an administrator. I loved teaching my students. And never in the 20 years, not one time was I required to use a scripted curriculum. Not one. I got a textbook that had content in it. I had standards that the state required. I wrote my own curriculum. I wrote my own lesson plans every week. We wrote them, we turned them into our principal so that he could go over them and make sure that we were doing our job, I guess. And then that was it. I never had them hand me something like this, where day one I do this, day two I do this. And when they tried to do it in Louisiana in 2005 with something called the core curriculum, I went to my principal, I said, I quit. I said, I'm not doing this. I threw it on the desk, fire me, because I'm not doing it. I said, the curriculum does not determine what my students do. My students determine what the curriculum does. I don't let. Unfortunately, teachers today are threatened with their jobs. I had the luxury, because my husband and I are very frugal and we don't live to the extent of both of our salaries, I could quit if I wanted to. Our living, our standard of living might not have been as high, but I could live with myself. in that situation. We would just cut out things and live more frugally if we had to, but I didn't have to. I had a wonderful principal, and he threw it in the garbage and said, "You got too passionate and do what I know you know how to do." Don't have many of those principals anymore. So the teacher leader program, and then the curriculum. And so Louisiana has been very involved in this idea of high quality instructional materials. You'll hear that a lot, high quality. And when I looked it up, when I read Tennessee's grant for this instructional support network, which is like the teacher leader program in Louisiana, when I started reading the research in that, I noticed Louisiana coming up. And I'm like, oh my gosh, why would you want to adopt the Louisiana model? We're like 48th in the nation. And actually in one category, 51st behind DC. And I'm like, why would you want to do that? So I'm looking at it, and I'm like, okay, what is high quality? I've been teaching forever, and I've been in education forever. Now we got this new term, high quality, and as I'm looking through the grant, read all of the research that they put into this grant, and I noticed Louisiana popping up, and then I noticed that there are two organizations that will determine what is high quality. One of them is Ed Reports, which actually began its mission to determine how closely aligned the curricula was to Common Core. That was its, and even today, it'll say on its website that it was the Common Core standards that influenced how they review the curriculum. So it's still Common Core. And then the other person or organization that's going to determine what high quality is, are you ready? Louisiana Department of Education. And I'm just sitting there going, oh. And so Louisiana has different tiers, and it has tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 as it identifies categories for high quality. And in tier 1, you have wit and wisdom. In tier 1, you have EL education, which is open up resources, which Sumner County, Wilson County, and Rutherford County have adopted. All of these are in their tier 1. And what they did in Louisiana with their federal grant was they bribed the districts to take it. So a huge number of districts have adopted this. And when I came here in 2019 and began speaking at events, it's a long story how I got into this all over again. I thought I was done when I moved here. And now they laugh at me in Louisiana, like, you're busier there than you were here. And so basically, they incentivized the adoption of these tier 1. And so anyway, if you go to EL's website and you look at their own words, they tell you that the curriculum, that number one, that they are an aspiring anti-racist organization. Now, with curricula, you need to understand something. It's never value-free, ever, on either side. You have people who are put in charge of writing it, and then what those people do is they will determine through their own value system and their beliefs what will be included, what will not be included, and how it will be taught and how it will be assessed. Now, if you go to the mission and values and goals that are all over EL Education's website, they don't hide it. It's in, I can move my little tinfoil hat around if you want me to, but I told somebody just the other day, it's not a conspiracy if they brag about it. And they brag about it on their website. So if you go to the article on their website that talks about the K through 8 curriculum, they say students will learn literature and they will be explicitly taught to look at literature through the eye of race and racism. They say it right there on the website. And so, for example, they give you an example that in Peter Pan, that they're going to read Peter Pan looking for oppressed oppressor, looking through the eyes of race and gender. And then in one of the assignments, they're going to write about how to fix the problems that they saw in Peter Pan related to race and gender ideology and identity. So the thing about it is, I don't have to review this curriculum at all. They have already told me what's in it. I could spend hours and hours. Now see, Wit and Wisdom wasn't quite as blatant. You had to kind of look and find Wit and Wisdom. And the only reason I knew about it when I moved here and warned people about if this shows up in your state, run, was because I had a mom come to me and say, I need, somebody told me that you could come with me to review this. Would you come? And I said, sure, I'll come with you. It was a lady I went to church with. And we had a wonderful principal who said, absolutely, you want to look at it? We'll provide a room for you and we'll bring all the books to you. How many are doing that today in Tennessee? How many principals are opening up the doors and saying, sure, come on in? Never, ever, not once. When I say never, I mean never, did I ever tell a parent they could not come to my classroom. No, you have to go through protocols, you have to go through my principal, and we need to have safety of other children, make sure you're not some serial killer coming on campus. Okay, but never did I tell a parent. In fact, I would invite parents. Why don't you come? Come see what we're doing. Why don't you, you want to look at the book? Absolutely, here's the book. Why would you hide from the parents? And I will tell you this, and this is where I live, if you will, and I didn't used to, by the way. I used to be an atheist, and I don't live there anymore. I'm a reformed atheist. Is Deuteronomy 6:4-5, which is in Hebrew, the Shema prayer. Hear, O Israel, the Lord thy God is one. We know he's one. That's what we should know about him. What is our response to him? Thou shalt love the Lord with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your strength. Our response to him. But if you go down to verse 7, it tells you to teach your children diligently my word. And it is not up to the schools to be teaching your children about sexual behavior and about racial issues that they are not old enough with the mental acumen to parse this language or to have the ability to move in this world when and this is the one thing about critical theory you need to understand most of all, it is a relentless, Marxism, it actually came even before Marxism, but it is a relentless criticizing. And you're going to teach kids how to be resentful. Mm-hmm. And so anytime I can give you more information, please reach out to Tammy or reach out to me. I'll be glad to give you information. Thank you so much for your time.
We're trying to squeeze everybody in today. So just a taste of Dr. Myers, y'all, she's phenomenal. We're so fortunate to have her here. Thank you. She's got other appointments today. Thank you for coming for a short time. Next up is Amity Marsh with Moms for Liberty for Davidson County, and she's put some of her cardboards up around the room. These are pictures of books. Y'all are welcome to, after the speakers are finished, to come and look around. We're going to have a time after Ms. Reguli speaks to have some question and answer time. So we just need to be kind of off the platform at 11 so Mr. Walker can open up his business here. So you can hang around afterwards and ask questions. So thank you, Amity, if you'll come up.
So I'm with Moms for Liberty, Davidson County. I got started with Cindy Goddard, and Stephanie was working with us before, but she's still part of the organization and has some other things with moving and all. Jennifer Condor is our treasurer, so I'm working with them. I first kind of came around with the Williamson County. I just happened to know, that's kind of how I got started with the whole thing, seeing the whole Wit and Wisdom curriculum. So our mission, and again, this could be kind of repetitive, but just for those that haven't known, Moms for Liberty were founded in January 2021 in South Florida with 2 chapters. Davidson County chapter was founded July 21st, 2021, along with 13 other new chapters for a total of 84 chapters across 25 states. And of course, there's some that are still pending and working through things. Tennessee alone has 5 chapters right now: Davidson, Hamilton, Knox, Sullivan, and Williamson, with several more pending. Kristen Benton will be the Tennessee coordinator for all things Moms for Liberty Tennessee. Moms for Liberty was founded to help moms, dads, grandparents, and liberty lovers to stand up for parental rights and freedoms. We believe that parental rights do not stop at the classroom door. And for those that, just to kind of get a little better idea, critical race theory is intended to divide students by race. Individuals are divided into oppressor and oppressed groups based on skin color. A law was passed to ban CRT in Tennessee. However, they're still trying to sneak it into the curriculum that's currently being taught. Is CRT in Tennessee schools? The answer is yes. Great Minds, Wit, and Wisdom has been adopted in 33 counties in Tennessee. Common threads in Wit and Wisdom. Bad white people, that's taught in 1st, 2nd, and 5th grade. Cannibalism, 1st, 3rd, and 4th grade. Suicide ideation is 1st and 3rd through 5th grade. Extreme emotion from kindergarten through 5th grade. Dark imagery, again, kindergarten through 5th grade. Age inappropriate topics, kindergarten through 5th grade. Anti-America, 1st through 5th grade. And graphic death, kindergarten through 5th grade. So I wanted to just do some little brief excerpts from some of the storyboards that we have up here. There's some on this side, also around this section over here. So for 1st grade, and actually I want to start with, although there's not a storyboard for this one, this is for kindergarten. There's one story that was brought to my attention, Why Mosquitoes Buzz, and this is just a little summary. It's very dark material. All the animals look mad and angry throughout the book. The monkey jumps on a tree branch that breaks and kills a baby owl. The mom owl is so sad that she can't hoot, and so the sun won't rise. There's an illustration of her holding the dead baby owlet. Chain of event concept can be better illustrated with less morbid events. 1st grade. Feelings, and just a little excerpt. Teacher's manual has 506 pages. The word feeling appears 639 times. While feelings are okay and appropriate to discuss, the heavy focus here is on the negative emotions. Mad and angry appear almost 4 times more than happy. Joy is barely mentioned. The teacher's manual, pages 113 to 114, states the students will focus on one feeling, either furious or sad, even though there are more feelings represented in the book. The manual then lists numerous examples of furious, mad, and sad. There have to be better books to teach our children. Why are 1st graders reading this scary, angry book? 1st grade, Brave Irene. Let me introduce you to a book for 6 and 7-year-olds. 1st grade, called Brave Irene. After unrelenting struggle through a snowstorm, and on page illustrating the young girl, Irene, buried in the snow with only the tip of her hat and her hands exposed, the book reads, "Why not freeze to death," she thought, "and let all these troubles end? Why not?" She was already buried, 6 and 7 years old, introduced to suicidal ideation. And this is a 3rd grade book. I'm kind of skipping a little bit. In 3rd grade, we see more suicidal ideation and death repeated in a book called Amos and Boris. For an added bonus, we also get the insertion of doubt into common religious doctrine. The text about a mouse lost at sea states, he began to wonder what it would be like to drown. Would it take very long? Would it be just awful? Would his soul go to heaven? Would there be other mice out there? Can we not agree that 6, 7, 8, 9-year-olds do not need exposure to this age-inappropriate, dark, and troubling content? Is this the best that we can do to push our children to excel at reading? Surely we can do better than that. 1st grade, Seahorse, the Shyest Fish in the Sea. So 1st grade, they're reading about mating and reproduction of seahorses, the only fish that has opposite gender roles for this process. They're provided many illustrations and talk vibrantly about the mating process and positions. To quote, they twist their tails together and twirl gently around, changing color until they match. Today, Seahorse's mate is full of ripe eggs. The 2 of them dance till sunset, and then she puts her eggs into his pouch. A few weeks later, Seahorse finds a quiet place. Second grade book, Separate is Never Equal. For the second grade book, the teacher manual states the text is too complicated for the kids to read. So instead, the teacher is to have the kids focus on the illustrations. These illustrations include Mexican children behind fences at a pool that has a sign reading, "No dogs and Mexicans allowed," eating lunch in a pasture with the cows and flies, and Sylvia crying at school with white children around her. Statements from the book include they have problems with lice, impetigo, and tuberculosis. They have generally dirty hands, face, neck, and ears. And one character is asked, "Do you believe white students are superior to Mexicans in just personal hygiene, scholastic ability, clothing, and their ability to take part in activities in school?" And the character answers yes. Another second grade book, Ruby Bridges. This picture from the book that you'll see on the boards, following excerpts from the teacher's manual. This is the very first lesson in the Civil Rights Heroes module. Page 24 to 25, Ruby Bridges Goes to School, features Norman Rockwell, The Problem We All Live With, showing Ruby Bridges surrounded by the U.S. Marshals, and including a racial slur in the background, the N-word. Use this opportunity to remind students that racial slurs are words people use to show disrespect and hatred towards people of different races. Point out that the use of the word was common at this time, and people still use the word today as a hateful slur. Reinforce the power of language and how words can cause pain. Draw on students' knowledge of the civil rights movement to discuss how words can be used to attack and disrespect people. Second grade, The Buffaloes Are Back. Here's some excerpts from this book. But it was settlers from the East and American government that killed almost all the buffalo herds. They forced many Indians to go to the reservations and sold the land to settlers. The government broke its treaties with the Indians, and soldiers and settlers were encouraged to shoot every buffalo they saw or drive whole herds over the cliffs. The only people pictured are American Indians and the government, settlers, and President Theodore Roosevelt. Who do you think will be sorted as bad out of these choices? So third grade, Shark Attack. One story from that. The third story places a very unexpected place, a creek. A 12-year-old boy was swimming, screamed, and disappeared beneath the water. A man jumps in to drag Lester's lifeless body from the water, and suddenly the man felt something bump his right leg. When he reached down, he realized part of his leg had been ripped away. They had been attacked by a shark. Both the man and the boy died. Third grade, Starry Messenger. A few excerpts. He had gone against the church. Galileo was ordered to stop believing what he could see with his own two eyes. He was summoned to appear before the highest ruler of the land, the Pope. Galileo was afraid. He knew that people had suffered terrible torture and punishment for not following tradition. It could happen to him. This is very dark and scary imagery that you'll see on the boards. In addition to that, it's very anti-tradition, anti-church. Page 30 says, I think that in discussion of physical problems, nature, we ought to begin not from the authority of scriptural passages, but from sense experience and necessary demonstrations. Fourth grade, George versus George. Here are a few of the quotes from the book. Besides constantly stealing food and horses, the redcoats burned entire towns and villages, looted and seized people's houses, raped and murdered innocent civilians, and set fire to crops in timberland. British troops locked prisoners in filthy ships where they died like flies from starvation, heat, cold, and disease. Fourth grade, Walk 2 Moons. My mother screamed just once, one long mournful wail, and then it was quiet. When the doctor carried the baby out of the room, I asked to see it. It had a pale bluish tinge, and there were marks on its neck, where the umbilical cord had strangled it. It might have been dead for hours, the doctor told my father. I asked if I could touch her. She was still a little warm from being inside my mother. And the teacher's manual gives 3 separate warnings for the emotional and mature content in this book. With all the great literature out there, why are we reading a book that requires thus many warnings? Fourth grade, Hatchet. His mother sitting in the station wagon with a man, and she had leaned across and kissed him. Kissed the man with the short blonde hair, and it was not a friendly peck, but a kiss. And then it goes on. And then at this point, the boys see what's going on, and that there was a secret about his father, didn't seem to know what was going on. So it says to where he wanted to die. And then it talks about a hissing madness that took his brain. There had been nothing for him then, and he tried to become nothing. But the cutting had been hard to do, impossible to do, and he at last had fallen to his side, wishing for death, wishing for an end, and slept only, didn't sleep. It's completely age inappropriate to teach 9 and 10-year-olds about infidelity and suicide. And I'm going to skip, there's another one about gifts from the gods. There's one little brief part. It talks about, and he invited the gods to a banquet at his house and had his own son, Pelops, cooked up and served as a meal. Nobody knows why he did such a dreadful thing. And this one was one that we don't have up here. So war orphans, woodrunners, children orphaned by war, countless were during the Revolutionary War, suffer from nightmares and sleeping problems, headaches, stomach aches, anger, irritability, and anxiety. Several traumatized children may become withdrawn, appearing numb and unresponsive, and sometimes becoming mute. When the danger and devastation end, children can show remarkable resilience and recovery if they are in a safe and stable environment, when they are cared for and nurtured. Okay, so I'm going to just briefly touch on that. I'm short on time, so I'll be quick. 5th grade, thunder rolling in the mountain. Just a few things from that. To kill us, setting fire from the tents. Shoot a soldier. These are just some quotes from it. Bullets struck her in the chest. She got the gun from him and took careful aim and shot him in the face. And then I felt a new slip around my neck. It drew tight and the world went black. And then the last 5th grade one, the river between us. And I'm just going to touch bits. What men do best is walk away from women. Painted up floozy. He's drunk. All men are drunkards. And then one section, placage, it describes as the arrangement for a white man to take care of the colored mistress and their daughter. It helps to understand that Daphne's grandfather, and mother and father did not marry, but they had children together. So anyway, those are a few examples. I'll be really quick to wrap up. Call to action. So what we need you all to do is to come to the school board meetings. I mean, even if you just show up at the school board meetings, you don't have to speak, don't feel pressured, but the more, the merrier. I mean, we just need support. You can sign up to speak. It's the second Tuesday of the month. Usually, you need to sign up by Monday by noon. And we're trying to get it in an order, so if we can all, and if we're able to, easier said than done, but within, if we have 10 people speaking, trying to get us all pretty much next to each other. And then you can contact your school board, your legislatures. I've heard that the best way to contact the school board is in writing. I mean, you can do an email, but I've heard there's more impact that way. You can call them. Sign up for Moms for Liberty if you haven't, if you feel called. You can just share this information with anyone that you know. Volunteer to help with any of the meetings and planning for events. And then the last thing is an opt-out. Just so you know, there are ways to opt out of the test. We did, my husband and I, we did go ahead and submit a request to opt our son out of at least the first book that's going to be handled for 5th grade. We sent it to the principal, we sent it to the English teacher. I did actually get a response back from the executive director of middle school, and they are working with literacy director on alternatives. So, that being said, there is an opt-out form back there that you can see. There's a link we can send you if you need it, and just know that we're all in this together, and we just really, really appreciate your support. So just show up to the school board meetings. You can sign up in the back for if you want to give us your email or have other information or questions. There's a link as well. So I really appreciate it. Yes, the next school board meeting, that will be September. I have to actually look at the calendar. It'll be the second Tuesday.
14th.
September 14th. Okay. Sorry, I didn't actually have the exact date in front of me, but the second Tuesday. So it starts at 5 o'clock. So usually we try to get there 4:45 because it will be lightly packed again. I mean, it's been pretty much so for the last couple. But I'll just tell you that with that being said, our first experience was terrible. Second experience was so much better. So we got clapping. The first time we had 3 people there, we got booed. We not booed, but we got laughed at. So just know, the more people there, we want to overpower. So thank you all.
Thank you, Emma. Y'all are just getting a taste. I'm sorry for being such a taskmaster on the time today. I've got one question. Dr. Myers, you may be able to weigh in on this. We were to have Lori Cardozo-Moore, who's on our textbook committee, and since she's not here, many people have asked me how these books became into our curriculum, how they came into our curriculum. It's my understanding that they do not go before the textbook committee, and they're just a supplement to the curriculum. The books, these books.
Well, if they're part of the curriculum, they're obviously they've been approved, because the thing about the Witten Wisdom and EL, they're Common Core based, and what Common Core does is it has an anchor text, and then all of the lessons wrap around that text. So even if you look at the curriculum and say that that's what they're using, that is the content. So how can you say that they weren't reviewed?
But we only review our textbooks every 6 years.
Right, now that's an issue.
So that was my whole point, is it's not like an ELA or science or history book.
Yeah, because it's a curriculum. It's because the curriculum is the curriculum. Now, I'm fairly new to Tennessee, and this is what I understand, is the textbook committee doesn't, the textbook commission that she's on isn't the reviewer. They hire reviewers, and then those teachers review, and they submit a report to the textbook committee, and that textbook committee just takes them at their word.
Teachers union or something. I've heard something.
I can tell you that the state, so from the school that I was at previously, they adopted units where the teachers, where we used the state-built lesson plans, and within the state-built lesson plans, there are several of these books that we were required to teach from for second grade, kindergarten through fourth grade. So that's where a lot of these books are coming from. And my understanding was that it was a board of teachers were used to help build these lesson plans.
And Louisiana did the same thing. It's called guidebooks. You had teachers creating it, but if you have the same kind of teachers that are signing the letter that says, I'm going to teach it anyway, in other words, if the textbook committee is going to approve it, the buck stops with them. If you didn't bother to look into it, you just accepted the report, then.
Okay, thank you. I didn't mean to put you on the spot, but that's one thing that I've been trying to figure out, because I don't think they have been reviewed.
And they don't have easily, and I've complained about this, there's no procedure listed on how this is done in writing. Where are the rules? Like in Louisiana, we have bulletins, and they have to be written and put out for public consumption, and it's hard to find that stuff. At least I can't.
It is. I've even gone to our website and can't find stuff,
Right.
even as a board member. So thank you. Next up is a great substitute. She's on our executive board, infinitely integral in parents and their custodial rights. And she's going to come speak to us today, Ms. Connie Reguli. Thank you.
I just want to fill in today. I'm Connie Reguli. I'm an attorney in Middle Tennessee. I've been an attorney in Middle Tennessee about 27 years. I had a whole real life before that. My family had a very successful restaurant business in Tennessee for about 30 years. So I have now thrust myself into the legal system. And one thing I found, of course, maybe because I came in with the real world behind me, instead of going right from college into law, I found out very quickly that I didn't like the way things were going. Okay, so for the past 20 years, I have really devoted my energies, although I work full-time and raised a family and did 100 different things, I have devoted myself to trying to make things better. All right, make things better in any interplay between the family, the children, the parents, and the government. Okay, the government is the key word here. So as I struggled to help families defend their rights, I became more thrust into the Department of Children's Services and CPS and what they were doing to families. And they were just crushing families for poverty and medical kidnapping and educational decisions. And it's not what you think. It's not there are children out there being abused and neglected and they need better homes. Out of the 673,000 children in the foster care system, only about 10 to 12% of those are there because of abuse or neglect. The others are there because of the broad category called, for abuse. The 85% is there for what's called neglect, and about half of those in neglect have to do with there's some substance abuse within the family. So we have huge problems with substance abuse in parents, especially in rural areas. Opium, horrible, meth, horrible, fentanyl, it's like destroying our families. But then there's this whole other 45% category that can be anything from not educational neglect, it can be medical neglect, it can be environmental neglect. And so I wanted to see why the system was so broken. Now, I knew we had a lot of bad laws because parents' rights are crushed, okay? I could spend an hour telling you about all the laws out there that get passed one at a time under my feet that I can't stop, that are crushing our rights. But I finally, and I have one of my notebooks here, I gathered budgets, I gathered laws, I looked nationally, I've gone nationally to lobby, and I really wanted to know what the problem was. Well, it's money, okay? It's money, money, money. And I thought you guys would really kind of jump on that a little bit more too. But this right here, you may not be able to see it, but I finally put this together for to talk to state legislators. This right here is the Tennessee Department of Children's Services budget from 2013 to 2020. DCS goes in every year and asks for $50 million more because they don't have enough workers, they don't have enough workers, they don't have enough workers. I will tell you, they waste their time. Nobody's done a productivity examination on this agency. I go into a meeting and they'll have 6, 7, 8 people on the state payroll in a single meeting where I'm there with a client. So that we are now we are cresting $1 billion a year in DCS. All right, now in Tennessee, right now we have about 8,900 children in foster care. A lot of them are there for poverty, but they will. Let me tell you one horrible law. You won't. Sitting here today, you don't know this, but you could be convicted of a crime this easy. If DCS opens an investigation on you or your family, which can be an anonymous call, it can be somebody called on a Facebook post, by the way. I had this happen to a family, and they don't have to give a name. And it can be a rumor. I've had bad teenage girls calling reports in on their friends, okay? So let's say an investigation gets opened on you and your child comes home from school, they've been interviewed at the school, they're terrorized, especially young teens, and they tell you about it, and you say, well, I'll fix that. I'll take them out of school. I'm gonna start homeschooling them because that's easy in Tennessee. Well, guess what? You can go to jail for that. You can go to jail. It is a Class A misdemeanor to change your child's school enrollment while there's an open investigation. Now, that's not any finding against you. That's no adjudication. That's no court hearing. It's an anonymous phone call.
Wow.
An anonymous phone call. That law passed the Tennessee General Assembly unanimously.
Wow.
That's how horrible it is. I am finally up there. I've been tracking up there, trying to gain some ground for a long time. Of course, they all come up there with the attitude of, oh, these poor abused children. But you know, you follow the news stories and you will see that there are children dying in foster care, there are children wrongfully taken. I was telling some people here this morning about a child who was taken to Vanderbilt on an acute Crohn's disease attack, and Vanderbilt would not let her leave the hospital. DCS came in and took custody and forced a treatment they did not want. Okay, now where are we today, and how does that tie into what's going on right here? Vaccines, mask, education. If you don't like it, and you upset a teacher, and it may even be a teacher who would rather not be taking that position. It may be a teacher who would rather take a different spot. But if you get into a conflict with a teacher, they can call on you in a heartbeat, and at least 30% of the calls that go into the hotline come from schools. All right, so we have much to do. I have on social media several groups called the Family Forward Project. We now have them set up for every state. I work with people in all 50 states. We are trying to change some laws. I do want to say, I know we're trying to rush a lot of things into this meeting today. I'm also on the board of the TRA and the NFRA. We are going to do policy committees, and I have a sheet with a breakdown on that. There will be one policy committee that will handle family, education, medical freedom, etc. And so I want to, if you are here today, please get one of those sheets so you can take a look at it, because things are moving so quickly and so powerfully that I applaud. I watched the Williamson County School Board hearing. I've taken parents to the Williamson County Commission to complain about the way families were taught, and they sanctioned me for that, by the way. And they're trying to disbar me because they say I don't like what the judiciary does. So, but we are, we're going to need to have people at the state legislature too coming up. So school board meetings, get prepared to follow. We're trying to get our TRA group on Facebook, make sure the postings are more prominent, and get involved and have those conversations with people so you can just show up. I mean, sometimes I just need somebody on my arm, to go with me to talk to state legislators, and I've talked to Terry Weaver and Kerry Roberts and Mike Bell and Jack Johnson, and, so I've already got the ear of several of them, and we need to make some major changes. So thank you.
Thank you, Connie. As you can tell, we had some wonderful speakers today, and I'm sorry that we're trying to squeeze everything in, but Denise had a personal experience. But let me first say this. We've got these poll watchers for Hattie. I'm going to start relating these. If anybody wants to sign up, that would be great. Thank you all for coming. Thank our visitors for being here. We took a break off in July, so it's kind of people are down because everybody's trying to do vacation. I've got one coming up, but thank y'all visitors for coming. Y'all come back. This is a great group. Y'all, I don't need to tell you how imperative it is for us to get involved whatever your skill is, whatever your choice of problem is with our country. If we don't get involved, we're going to lose our country. Yeah. We're well on our way now. So Denise, you want to come up real quick? Or you just want to go from the floor?
I can go. Can everybody hear me? Like speaking from the floor? Just for real experience what Connie was saying, and this is not something new, this has been going on for a long time. First experience in Williamson County School, my son was 4th grade, and they wanted me to put him on Adderall, or some type of a substance to help him because they decided he was ADHD. He didn't focus properly in class. I said, I'm not interested in that. I've been to my physician. My physician says at this point it's not necessary. They said if he wasn't put on it, I would be turned over to the Department of Child Services. He'd be removed from my home. We're not getting him proper medical care. I was threatened, horrified, kept my child. Later on, same child, we're in high school now. We're at Franklin High School. I live out a little more rural area of Williamson County. I have a 3-acre yard. It's trees, it's private. We had a tent, and we set a tent out in the yard. And he had a mattress, an inflatable mattress out there, blankets, set up a fire. Weekends he had some friends there cooking out. He was really enjoying sleeping in the tent. Hey mom, I'm gonna sleep in the tent. 15 years old. I'm like, that's cool. I love you doing the outdoor stuff. Went to school. Someone heard he was in a tent. DHS shows up at my home, looks at the tent, and had interviewed my son. He said, no, my mom lets me come in the house anytime. I come in and take my showers, we eat dinner. I just really enjoy it. I've been having some guys over the weekends. They said it's getting to be October. It's going to get cool. We can't trust that you're letting your son in your house. We will be back. The tent better be gone. We better not find it in your yard again.
Yep.
And if so, DHS will come in and take your child and remove it from my home.
Yep.
Wow.
Yes, ma'am.
That's how quickly I was under investigation, and they were at my home and monitoring me and threatening me. And it's a scary thing when they just come and they'll take your child.
They can take your child. They'll take your child.
And you have to do what they tell you, or they'll take your child.
Wow.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that.
I have a question that you guys on that.
Okay.
Is that all right?
Yes. Yeah. We're going to do Q&A now. So.
Okay, well, all right. I actually have 2 questions. First question is, how many teachers
think are supportive of what you guys are talking about. So in my mind, what I'm wanting is kind of a soft percentage number of how many are wanting to teach what you guys are against, and how many of them in their hearts are like, this is terrible. And the second question quickly, piggybacks on her. My dad, when I was in grade school in Hendersonville, Tennessee, I'm 50, okay, so this is happening in the 70s and 80s, spoke up, and I was punished at school.
Yes.
For what he did. And the other teachers, or the other parents that were along with him, it was about 5. We were all punished, every one of us. So my concern is, what is happening to save your child? Because he's going to get punished probably for what you're standing up for. And I heard on TV the other night about there was a couple of black mothers who were very upset in Atlanta because their children were getting segregated into black only, and the teachers were speaking up, the parents were speaking up. The dad was getting revenge, because I guess he must have worked in the school system. And my thought then was, oh my God, what is going to happen to these children when their parents are speaking up?
They could turn into DHS and say the parents aren't raising them properly and
Yeah.
take them away.
Yeah.
They don't want the parent, they don't want the parents to be, they're like, I guess they think that the parents can't take care of their kid. That's the way people are seeing it. And as far as the question regarding the teachers, I mean, it's really hard to say just based on the school board meeting, because I mean, there was a question brought up at the school board meeting, like, well, how are you going to protect us as teachers if we're teaching the CRT? I don't know that they were necessarily arguing teaching it. So it's kind of hard. I don't have a number.
I think the teachers that are opposed are afraid to speak
They're
up.
scared.
Do you think there's 60%? Do you think there's 65% that are silently scared?
Honestly, I would say that. I mean, I can't say for a fact that's the case, but in the back of my mind, I would say, yeah, there's a lot of people scared because they're scared for their jobs. They're scared for
And what do you think it has to do with age group? Because in my profession with lawyers, I see a huge difference in the attitude of our freedoms and our rights. For the older attorneys versus the younger attorneys are more like the government should be in control. I mean, it's professionally, I see.
I'll say from my standpoint of my day job of being on the school board, the union members that are in my school, we got 50 schools now, we got 5,600 employees. So each school probably has close to 100 teachers. The head of the union told the teachers at her school that she didn't give a beep about the law, that she was still going to teach CRT.
And there is a document that's circulated of Tennessee teachers that work in Tennessee that have signed and pledged that they're going to go against the ban of CRT, and they're going to. So my question is, I don't know who's got time to comb through that and say, this teacher works at this school, this teacher works at this school in this county. If your child is in this school, be aware and be pre-warned that this teacher is going to teach your child exactly the doctrine and curriculum that you oppose. So we've got the names. We just need to take that extra step and figure out where they're located.
There's at least 21 that I saw listed. There's a link out there. There's at least 21 teachers for sure that said we're going